Shaq and Flea were in it.
Oh, nice.
And I remember we're in this room shooting this thing, and it was about like a kid who has imaginary friends, and two of his imaginary friends were Shaq and Flea, I think. But Shaq was there, and he walked into the room, and it was that like stereotypical thing that you hear about, like he just like altered the gravity of he like literally seemingly physically changed the molecular makeup of the room, where people would just almost unconsciously, myself included, I think, just sort of gravitated towards him, and just like like he was the sun and we were his orbiting planets. Like you just like can't help but like go to Shaq. Like you just couldn't help it. And everyone's shaking his hand. And at a certain point I was like, there was like a quiet moment. I was like, just out of curiosity, like how many hands do you think you shake every day? Like just out of curiosity. And he was like, probably around 200 to 300. And I was like, wow. And then he was like, I have a method. He said, I shake your hand when I meet you. Okay. And then you say whatever you're going to say. And then I shake your hand a second time. And that's like the exit shake. That's the second shake is like, and we're done.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
So deep. So deep.
We're in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
You have to go deeper, I think.
Welcome to the show. My name is Nathaniel August Williams. This is Deep Noodle, and I have with me someone I'm just so happy to have this gentleman here.
Sweet guy.
My guest today is a very, very funny comedian, actor, and writer. You may know him as John Strickland on Comedy Central's Corporate. He's also appeared on The Office, Two Broke Girls, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, and in films like Battle of the Sexes and Netflix's Family Switch. Mm-hmm. He's a founding member of the sketch group Harvard Sailing Team and has written and performed for Funny or Die and Comedy Central and developed shows for HBO and Adult Swim. Adam Lustick, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, man.
Nathaniel August Williams.
I know.
I love that. The three name, it's a robust. Nathaniel August Williams is very regal. There's something, sounds like sort of like royal.
Yeah. It's like a Philip Seymour Hoffman.
It's beautiful.
The sort of,
it's really nice.
That's the connotation I'd love to.
Did you ever consider going by August? Or like Augie or something along those lines?
I always thought maybe that if I had a stage name, I would use Nathaniel August.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Nathaniel.
Love it.
Or August Williams, which sounds very like August Wilson. So I think that's, it always felt a little disingenuous to kind of call yourself something that you're not being called by all your friends all the time.
Yes.
So I'm still grappling with
You're
it.
grappling. It's a lifelong process.
We'll see,
I have a couple of other questions for you. If you don't mind.
Sure. And thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for being a guest / host of this.
No, I love it.
This is, I love your home. You have such a beautiful place. You have such a great place. I was complimenting when I walked in. But I am a little blown away by the multifacetedness of your artistry. I was not super, I just want to brag on you for a moment and be like, these guitars are yours. They're so awesome.
Thank you.
These photographs you took. What is your history with photography?
Thank you.
Again, thanks for coming on the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Photography. I did go through a period where I thought maybe I would be a photographer.
Really?
I've just always really liked it. My grandfather was a photographer. He was a World War II photographer.
Whoa.
He worked at the Saturday Evening Post.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah. Which is
cool.
The story about him was that he like really wanted to cover the D-Day landings, but they wouldn't let him because he had a family.
Can't let you do this, sir. Can't let you do it.
Exactly. And like, thankfully that was, because I think my mom came around after that would have happened. So, so I might not have been here if he get to follow his photography dreams.
That's right.
Also, I think it's hard to pick art. Like here, like I'm the kind of guy that might just like buy art on Amazon. Yeah. Where I'm just like, this looks cool. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
But then, and so my sister is an artist. She's a painter.
Cool.
And so I feel like, she's going to judge me if I don't have good. And it's not that my photos are great art, but I think you can justify if you have a photo and you're like, I took this. It's sort of like permission to hang it up in your house, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Whereas if you just buy it off Amazon, it's like, what's the story?
What's your connection to that? I don't know. I was on Amazon and I liked it.
I love this artist. I was just walking through a bodega.
Exactly.
Walking through a Parisian street.
That's right. I got this in sort of the outskirts of Paris. You're like, I don't know. I went on Amazon.com and it showed up and I liked it.
Yeah. Exactly. So So I think, I don't know if it's gauche to hang your own
No way. I think
photographs.
it's
They're
no
not,
way.
but
They're beautiful. Well, I'm really impressed by your artistry, Nate.
Thank
because
you.
I, of course, know you through the comedy world as like a hilarious improviser and comedian and actor and writer. And that's how we know each other.
Too kind.
So these other artistic disciplines you're like an onion that are sort of peeling the layers. What else do you do, man?
That's how I describe myself on my dating profiles. I was just like, peel back the layers
onion
of
Williams.
this onion. I think guitar and photography are definitely, I would say, high up on the hobby the hobby lists. Basketball, as we know,
hugely.
Yeah. Which brings me, the last time we hung out, I guess the last time we hung out was at your lovely New Year's Day.
Oh yeah, New Year's Day.
Drop by. What would you call it? Soiree,
kickback, open house.
Yeah. Very nice. Great spread.
It was really lovely. I'm so glad that you guys came.
Yeah, thank you. It was lovely to be there. We met a lot of other lovely babies and
tons of babies. Yeah, multi-gen. That's what we're like a good, to me, one of the sort of the hallmarks of a really great social event is multi-generational.
Yes.
We had olds, we had babies, we had toddlers, we had older kids, we had adults. It was like, that's
great.
I love that vibe. The circle of life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In my younger days, I bristled at that a little bit because I was like, I can't get wasted if there are babies here, But
then you realize you can.
Nice. Yeah,
well, you can get wasted. Yeah. It's almost more fun, really.
Yeah. I'm sorry for getting wasted at your
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Party. I apologize.
Yeah, you still do owe us for the vase, but that's fine. Yeah.
I'm working on it. But the time before that, you were taking me to the emergency room.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And I want to say publicly on air for the masses, for the thousands and thousands of listeners and fans, thank you very much. I had never had to be taken to an emergency room before.
This was my perspective, if you don't mind me telling my perspective.
Please. Yeah.
Pick up basketball. We play regularly.
Yeah.
I had gotten there a little bit late. I was like running like maybe 15 minutes late. And already when I walked in, you were already hurt. So I did not see the sort of point of impact itself, the incident itself, but you were sitting on the bench and you were clearly in pain and in distress.
Yeah.
And I asked you what happened and you told me that there was a little collision and like it was your shoulder. And then you kind of scampered off to the bathroom and I went to check on you. Sorry if this is too much information, but this is just the context.
Yeah.
Went to check on you and you were like, and I was like, hey man, how's it going? And you were like, ooh, I'm hurting. I'm hurting right now. I will let you know. And I was like, if you want to go to the urgent care or like you just let me know. And you said that's so you are a consummate polite human being.
And I'm sure that when you were offering that, you were like, well, there's no way I'm going to have to take this guy.
Not at all, dude. I was I didn't know. I didn't know how bad, because again, I wasn't there for the thing and I just saw you, but you were clearly in distress. Yeah. And you said, you're so polite, even in your moment of agony, you were like, that's so sweet of you. That's really nice of you, man. Like, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. And then maybe like 10 minutes later, you were like, hey man, let's, I think we should, let's go to the doctor.
Yeah. So what happened is I separated my shoulder.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, when I heard separated shoulder injuries, I was sort of like, it's a sprain.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a thing.
Yeah.
But what that means is that your collarbone completely detaches from your shoulder joint, and 3 ligaments that hold your collarbone to your shoulder, in my case, were completely severed.
Bummer.
Just gone. And so when the injury happened, I was going up for layup and I got someone tried to make a block and I got slammed into the wall under the hoop and I was running full out.
Yes.
And my collarbone popped out of the joint and it was sticking up out of the skin, not like breaking the skin, but it was like
protruding a little bit,
protruding up out of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And the first thing someone said was like, hey, are you all right? And my response was like, I don't know.
No.
But I was pretty sure that I wasn't totally all right. And I thought I had fractured my collarbone, of course, because I was like, I had no other context for when a bone would pop up out of your skin.
Body. Yeah.
So the bone was completely detached and I was like feeling this lump and I was like, maybe it's just a bruise. Like maybe, like I really didn't want to have a broken.
Of course not. Collarbone.
So I was kind of trying to like fight through it and see if maybe I had just like gotten a crazy.
Yes.
And so like you came in the bathroom to check on me and then you left and then I like literally like threw up.
from like the discomfort.
Just from the shock of it, I think.
Yeah, totally.
I wasn't like that scared. I was just like, my body
Your body was in shock.
Yeah, it was just going through a thing. And like I said, the bone was very visibly. And if you're watching the YouTube stream of this, I'll post the X-ray.
Yeah, post them.
So look away now if you're squeamish.
It is kind of funny the amount of like rapid fire rationalizing your brain does in the midst of an injury. I've broken my right ankle 3 times playing basketball.
Every time?
Every time.
Oh my God.
When I was 15, 25, and 35. I like to say it's a little like gift I give myself every 10 years. I shatter my right ankle.
Every 10 years, I love to
shatter it into pieces. Haven't needed surgery yet, knock on wood. But like, it is funny. Like the last one was at El Rio. I was playing outdoors.
Yep.
So this is what, like 5 years ago now, 5-6 years ago. And jumped, came down on it, crack. It like, I knew in my mind, I knew it was broken.
Yes.
Like I just knew it. You know what I mean? I had done this before and also just like hurt real bad. But like the like you were saying, it's like, maybe it's just a bruise. It's probably just a bruise.
Yeah.
Just a scratch.
Just a sprain.
Just a sprain.
Yeah.
This sort of rapid rationalizing and optimism that your brain just sort of like does. I'm like, man, it's probably just a sprain. Maybe it's not broken. Maybe if I keep my shoe on forever, I'll never have to know how broken it is.
Yeah. I wanted to go back. I was like, I'm just going to shake this off. I'm going to go back into the game. I really don't want to, like, it was so, as you said, it was very early. Right, it was literally like the third play of the day. It was such a bummer.
Well, I'm so happy that you are recovered and you were telling me in full strength and that you're back. Can I actually have another follow-up question for you, Nate, if you don't mind. Again, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
But, so grandfather war photographer, sister painter.
Yeah.
So I'm so, I don't want to say jealous, but like I don't have many artists in my family. My aunt is a flautist and she played for the, she's played flute her whole life. And like, she went to music school and played for the Miami Symphony for a long time and like whatever. Wow. But outside of that, don't have a lot of artists in my family. My parents were school teachers. My uncle's a lawyer, accountants, blah, blah, blah. Did you grow up in a particularly like and your home is just so beautiful. And like I said, like, and you and Jess are both artists and like full of art. Was this kind of what the vibe was when you were growing up? Like art and music sort of abounding?
A little bit.
That's so cool.
Yeah. My dad was a musician.
Wow.
But I will say like his day job, he was a lawyer. That was his day job.
Yeah.
But he played in bands my entire life.
So cool.
Still plays in bands. He's 77 and he plays bluegrass music in Ohio.
Yeah, dude.
Check him out. The Woodpickers is his current project. Check him out.
We'll drop the link right here.
Yeah, dropping the link if you're heading through Columbus, Ohio.
The Woodpickers.
Cool. And bluegrass. So I think my dad really like sort of modeled a lot of performance and artistry. And then my mom was also very artistic in her way. I think she, I don't know if she ever said to herself, I want to be an artist or, I don't know what her internal relationship with it. She would always downplay it. She would draw. She had like she made like really good art pictures. I don't know what drawings.
Cave paintings.
Yeah.
So what do you call them?
Scratchy scratches.
Yeah.
And she wrote a lot. She was actually, she got involved with our church and she became the director of religious education. Our church is, I grew up in the Unitarian Universalist Church, which is
the chill version.
Very chill. It's a very open spiritual community. You can be an atheist, you can be a humanist, you can be a Christian, all are welcome basically, as long as you're not like, killing people.
Yeah, that's right.
Praise.
And even then you're welcome.
And, we'll consider you.
We'll be bad, but you're welcome.
So a very open spiritual community, spiritual search. But so my parents are both very involved and my mom became the director of religious education.
Right on.
And she like wrote a lot of helped write a lot of the curriculums. So I think she was a very artistic person without, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if she ever really thought about giving it a full run, but I would think my parents were very encouraging.
Amazing.
Enough about me, Adam Lustick. Let's talk about, I went on your IMDb and I just took a look and you have been working. You have been working and working. You have an IMDb that I think like the vast majority of actors would be very jealous of.
I have had some fortune.
Yeah.
I've had some fortune. I mean, like, as we all know,
deserved fortune.
I appreciate it. I was listening to a little bit of your episode with Rob and like, as anyone who's in the industry or industry adjacent knows, this is a uniquely weird, sticky, precarious, wobbly time in
Hollywood.
in Hollywood Inc.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I have had the very, very good fortune and have been lucky to be on some cool shows and meet some cool people and work with some fun people.
And this is,
cool.
some of the stuff I love to talk about is like, so you have a career that I think by any means would be considered very successful.
Well,
do you feel successful? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like you've made it?
Absolutely not. That is a hard no to all of those questions. Do I feel successful? No. I mean, again, this is like, this is just and maybe many artists feel this way. I mean, there's what is that? Not Twyla Tharp, but there's some wonderful quote about like the beautiful dissatisfaction. Just like no matter, I feel like maybe in the arts, no matter what degree of sort of like success you have, I think there's always like a beautiful dissatisfaction and like always striving, maybe that no matter where you are or who you are, that is, and one will maybe never feel satisfied. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be totally wrong, but the people that I know, no one feels. I don't know too many people who feel successful, fulfilled, or fulfilled, to be honest. And I don't know if I expect to. I'm not sure that I expect to. You know, like my first, I went to acting school at NYU, and one of my acting teachers, like our freshman year, who was beloved and is like still to this day one of the smartest people that I've ever known. This was like the first day of acting class. All of us are 18-year-old eager beavers, so eager, just like humiliatingly eager, obviously. Of course, you know the energy.
I know
like
the energy.
Freshmen in art school. And she said, okay, so you guys are like here and you're going into the arts. So like, here's the thing, you'll be broke.
Right.
You're going to be paupers. Like you just will be, like, that's part of it. But you will have the weirdest, funniest friends. So if you're willing to like make that trade, if that's essentially the contract that you're entering into.
Right.
And I do check in with that. And to me, that is the moments where I feel most fulfilled and most successful is when I'm able to like take a bit of a step back and be like, it's fun to be on TV, and yes, it's fun to make commercials and to have little bit parts in movies. And like, that's all fun. But what feels more gratifying is the community that I have cultivated and that I find myself in, and knowing people like you and just having friends and that are bizarre, having really bizarre, weird, knowing a lot of weird, eccentric people. To me, that's when I feel most successful, when it's like, look at all these weirdos I know that I wouldn't know otherwise. I'm so happy, no offense to your dad, to not be a lawyer. I'm so happy. I feel so being a lawyer would be great, but just like this weird, nomadic, financially uncertain, oftentimes very stressful artistic life. I often harken back to what that college teacher said, was like, yes, but like, look at all the crazy people I know and adore and just love to be around. And who are like true eccentrics and true weirdos. And I cherish that. And that is when I feel most successful and fulfilled. I'd like a New Year's Day open house when it's like a parade of bizarros that I love and just cherish and adore. It's like, that's when I feel successful. 100%. The work itself, I don't know. And again, maybe this is just me, is really fun. And like, I could, there's like a few shining moments, you know, littered throughout my IMDb that really stick out. I did an episode of, this was a multicam sitcom 1,000 years ago. My friend Maggie Mull was a writer for the show Dads. One of these, just one of them. And her dad, Martin Mull, rest in peace, was on the show. And the multicam is really fun because it's like doing a play, live audience and all that.
Right.
And like Martin Mull, who I was a fan of from a distance and just like aware of his genius. It was so amazing. And for these multicams, you get to spend the whole week on set because it's like you rehearse Tuesday, the dress is Wednesday, you tape on Friday, blah, blah, blah. So it's like sort of a whole days long experience with the cast and with the crew. And even just getting to be in this guy's orbit just for a few days. And there was a scene where he was playing guitar, and Martin Mull is also a multidisciplined guy. He's a painter and he's a musician and he's an actor and he's a singer and he's all these things. And like is a genius at all of them, sort of Steve Martin-ish. And I even think that he did the artwork for Steve Martin's album covers. Like, anyway. But in between takes, he would fool around with the guitar, and it was just like, and we would just chat a little bit. And it's like little slivers like that, little moments like that are the things that I think, I don't know, I'm like 60 years and I'm on my deathbed, that will sort of, those moments I would imagine would sort of rise to the top of consciousness rather than, I could not even tell you what the scene was, what the episode was about. I don't even remember. I'm not even sure, but I will always remember these like little micro interactions in between setups and in between takes with Martin Mull, this like American icon who I just had the good fortune of getting to share space with for a few days. I'm like, things like that I will really take away.
I was on a podcast the other day and I had the good fortune to get to talk about Joseph Campbell. I don't know if you're a
hero with 1,000 faces.
Hero with 1,000 faces. Yeah. A big hero of mine, Joe Campbell.
Yeah.
But, he talks about following your bliss. Yeah. And one of the things he says is like, once you enter the field of your bliss, you meet people that are in the field of your bliss.
Yeah, totally.
And those are the people you're sort of meant. Those are your people. Those are the people you're meant to be with.
There was another really great moment that I remember from, so after our freshman year at college, we did this like summer program in Vermont, and many of the people we would then form the Harvard sailing team. We were all in this group, and there was another brilliant teacher there who was really great acting teacher named Scott Ziegler, and he said, look, I'm here giving notes and I'm giving you my perspective, but don't listen to like I'm just one voice. The people that you like look around the room, your peers who you find yourself agreeing with, their voice is more valuable to you than mine. it's like, look around at your to your point of like people who are in your bliss orbit or whatever. It's like that. This is I really take that to heart as well. It's like, and I think good old Joey Campbell is right on the money. It's like once you because like the business of show business is like any other business, and it's like plenty boring and kind of annoying and like just about, acquiring health insurance. And it's like anything else. It's like, there's so much of it that is so unromantic and so unspectacular and kind of like dull in many ways. But when you're in the pocket and when you're like with your tribe or with your people or with your like-minded, folks, it's like that feels transcendent. That's what really, that feels really nice.
Yeah. It's about the connections, about the relationships.
Of course.
Yeah.
And again, it's probably like that in any, I would imagine, maybe that it's like that in any field. My parents,
if being a lawyer is your calling, then that will be the fountain of life for you. You will meet your people in the field of law.
100%. My uncle was a tax lawyer. Like I couldn't imagine two more dull words to me. But like he loves it. He made a grand life of it, and like has so many friends from his like tax lawyering days. And it's like anything else.
Yeah.
You find your people.
Yeah. Speaking of, talk to me about Harvard sailing team. How did that come about?
Okay.
What was your experience of that like?
So, like I said, I was at NYU with a lot of friends, and we NYU, the way the acting program is set up there's all these different individual studios within the acting.
Which one were you in?
Department.
Remind me.
You know this because you were at NYU. You're the same. We lived the same life.
Yes.
Okay. So our acting was Atlantic, the Atlantic Theater Company acting school.
So we went to the same
studio. We were there at the same time.
And you were a few years behind. No, we were there.
I was there
a few years behind me.
01 to 04.
Okay. Yeah.
Neck of the woods.
Yeah. So we were 1 year apart.
Okay. So exactly. Okay. So we were all at Atlantic together. The third year of after maybe the first year after we did this program in Vermont, and we were so inspired and just like 19 and our brains were on fire, and we were like, let's make a theater company. We want to like make one. So we did, and like we did a cute little like evening of one acts at like some weird theater on 44th and 9th, and like in like a 30-seat black box, and it was a blast. And it was like, talk about like finding your people, talk about like blissing out. It was it will never get better than that. I mean, just like the purity of the artistic expression was, and we wrote them and we directed them, and it was all of us doing it together. The best.
Yeah.
The best. Okay. So little theater company. Cut to a few years later, our third year of Atlantic, we take a sketch comedy writing class. The teacher we weren't that crazy about, but again, to the previous teacher, Scott Ziegler's point, it wasn't about the teacher, it was about each other. And I was like, oh man, Chris is amazing at this. Oh my gosh, Clayton's the funniest person I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God, Sarah's so funny. And it was like, we were doing it and we're like, this is really fun. And like, it occurred to us that, and we were just about to graduate basically. So we graduated, and Chris Smith, founding member of the Harvard Silent
Great guy,
team,
very nice
great
guy.
guy, the best guy.
Yeah, great
he
actor.
and Billy Scafuri, who you also know,
Yeah, love Billy.
They grew up 3 doors down from each other on Long Island. They've been friends since they were literal babies. And they were both really into the UCB, going to ASCAT every single week. Billy was interning at SNL. So like Chris and Billy specifically were really into the comedy. This was like this was like not even the heyday of UCB, probably like before the heyday of UCB.
Yeah, just like on the tip of the kind of exponential curve of
exactly.
UCB. Yeah.
So like Billy would drive in from Long Island and like go to see ASCAT and go to see shows all the time. And they were like really into that scene. I was not as much, but they were really into it. And they would write sketches and mail them. Billy tells a really funny story about it. They would mail them to each other. But like
they're both living in New York at this point?
Billy was on Long Island and Chris was in New York.
Okay.
But they would like write and like mail them to each other. And they were both really into it and just like writing sketches. And then Chris was like, I took this sketch comedy class in school and I have all these NYU friends. Billy didn't go to NYU. And Chris was like, I have all these college friends who are really funny. Like, you want to like put on a show to Billy? Billy was like, great. So that's kind of how it began. Yeah. And so it was like Chris and Billy, longtime childhood besties. And then Chris sort of looped the rest of us college folks into it.
Gotcha.
And that was was the nexus of it. And, we were doing shows at weird bars on Long Island to start. And like for, Chris's family and extended family. And that was it. And like, it was a blast, but like, it was great.
So funny. I didn't see a ton of those sketches, but the ones I saw were always so funny. The stuff at the People's Improv Theater was always
yeah. And then we were just like thrown into and then it was like, adjacent to the, we want to be a theater company thing. It was like, okay, we could, pardon me, like we could be a theater company and like do an evening of one acts at this black box theater in Midtown in Hell's Kitchen, where we have to pay for the space and blah, blah, blah. Or, and like, there's such a fine line between one acts and sketches. It's like, it's like, if you squint, a sketch is a one act. If you squint, a one act it's like, there's a lot of overlap there. Yeah. So it was like, well, why don't we just like, I don't know, really throw ourselves into the comedy scene, the UCB and the Pit, where it's like, we don't have to pay for the space. And in fact, maybe even we'll get paid a little bit, not at the UCB. But so that was sort of like that was the sort of calculus there. It was like, let's just be a sketch comedy group, I guess. And then we were sort of in the UCB and the Pit world where you and I met.
Yeah. That stuff feels so fertile artistically. It's like so many people that I think end up making it, quote unquote, like working in the biz or really having longevity, have something like that they got into kind of at a young age that sustained them a little bit. Yeah. And I had my wife, Jess Locker, on the pod, and she was one of the founding members of Story Pirates.
Oh, amazing.
Which is another sort of incredible, theater company kind of thing. And that was her version of that. And I did do you know Dodd Loomis? You know who Dodd Loomis is?
I don't think I do. What
He's a director. Wow. He's a director, good guy. Anyway, right after school, he directed a play, and it was like me and 2 of my very good friends and Dodd, who saw his friends. And it was that same experience. It was like, it was all us. We gave like a bunch of beer at all the shows. We'd give away free beer.
Yeah, man.
So we'd get these huge crowds. We'd like pack this tiny black box. And in that moment, I was like, well, this is it. This is it. This is how it's going to be. Like, I'm just going to live my life as a, like off Broadway theater performer. And we're just going to keep doing these plays and it's all going to bubble and become something brilliant. And then Dodd got like a job at some fancy theater tour and he was like, peace, I'm out of here. And it was just like all laid bare. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go wait tables.
Yeah. I think I really knew it at the time. Like it didn't, I don't know. I can have my moments of wisdom. And I do feel like even in the moment, when we were like doing weird shows in this basement under St. Mark's or
under St. Mark's, that's where we did the show.
Exactly.
Yeah, shout out to under St. Mark's.
Or like in the back of some bar at the downstairs at the Triple Crown, whatever. We were like doing all these shows. Even then I did have a gauzy, sentimental, sort of romantic feeling about it and like how fun and invigorating and life-giving it was to be in one's 20s, running around New York, doing comedy and all these. It was the best.
Yeah.
It was, and it remains the best. Before it was about like monetizing it or making money or having to pay your health insurance. It's like before any of those like real life adult annoyances and complications sort of came in, when it was like just the pure thing.
Do you think that still exists for 20-year-olds in New York? Like, do you think that?
I wonder.
Like, what is the version? Yeah, I wonder too, because I think it's wrapped up in YouTube and social media and
TikTok and all
stuff
that.
and
Yeah,
TikTok.
exactly.
And like, can you? I mean, this was like like we barely had cell phones, honestly. I mean, we're talking like 2004, 2005.
When we were in college, so exactly.
I guess we had cell phones, like dumb, not smartphones.
I was way late to the cell phone game, and you were asking me before we got on. You're like, "Do you edit?" And I was like, "I'm so dumb. I like have a will to my own detriment. I do not say this with pride. I say this with shame. I have like a willful ignorance about like technology. So like I was like a very late adopter to cell phones and smartphones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was Billy. Who was like, because we were doing live shows for years, every week at the Pit, at the UCB, whatever.
Yeah.
And we were in college. We were in college with the Derek Comedy Gang with DC and Donald and Dominic. And like at the 2005, it was like they had their first couple of YouTube.com videos blow up. And it was like, oh, videos, like online videos. And it was Billy, who was not like highfalutin theater school guy, Shakespeare, Chekhov, Ibsen guy. He was like, we should be making videos, like internet videos. And we were like, internet videos? Like,
yeah. It seems so ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, I just think that we should do that.
Yeah.
And then he was obviously very, very right. But that was this was at the dawn of the College Humor Funny or Die. Yeah, sort of the beginning of that chapter of media.
For sure. I mean, I give people so much credit who got on that sort of like viral train really early.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, like, if you're coming out of college and you're 20, you know, and you're like, I want to go to New York, I want to go to LA. Like, what is that life sustaining fountain of life energy that is a theater company or a performance troupe? Or
I will tell you that great question. I'm 41. I feel ancient, so I obviously do not know. But I will tell you that another one of our dear college friends, Jacqueline Landgraf, who's a genius, just became the artistic director at the Elysian Theater here in Los Angeles. And I will say,
oh, fantastic!
That
great theater.
That is the spot, Nate.
Yeah,
that is where there is so much experimental, clowny, avant-garde music. Some theater, comedy, stand-up, weirdos, experimental, bizarre, absurdist. Like that's where it's happening to me.
Yeah.
My 41-year-old ancient ass sort of like surveying the LA artistic comedy landscape.
Yeah.
It's the Elysian where I get stoked. I get inspired going to shows there because it's like, it is. Yeah. If I were 25 and I stumbled upon the Elysian, I'd be like, home.
Yeah.
Here's my home.
Yeah.
This is my home. These are my people.
Yeah.
Like, this is my bliss circle or whatever. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. And so I do think it exists in the live performance space.
And you would need to get a group together and like put, you'd have to become a little sketch group and build a show. And I think one of the gifts of like the People's Improv Theater and UCB is that it sort of gave you a program where you could find those people
100%.
And so much stage time, so much experience just performing, which is just invaluable, just hours on the boards.
Absolutely. And like, that was, I'll also say about Atlantic, where we went to school. It was like, the Atlantic Theater Company itself was founded by a bunch of scrappy 20-something upstarts who just like, let's start a theater company, like this really audacity of youth in that way. And like, that was very much infused in the spirit of the place.
Yes.
And they were very much like, to their credit, they were like, you got to write for yourself. No one's going to one's going to do this for you. Like, if you're like just an actor, just like going to open auditions or whatever, like that's a version of life, and like Godspeed and good luck.
Yeah.
But like, may we gently suggest that you like write for yourself and for your peers and for your friends. That's what built this theater company that you're in right now. Like, you can do that too.
That was one of the best things they said. And it was in college, I did not want to hear that. I wanted to be like, oh, I'm going to go to auditions. They're going to see that I'm the best.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Going to put me in things.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I'm not, I didn't think of myself at that time as a writer, and I was like, oh, the writing, like that's so hard.
Yeah.
And but it was really great advice. Make your own work is what they were always saying.
Great advice. And so I do think that like, I would imagine that and it's easier than ever now. You see all these like filmmakers be like, just make a movie. You have a phone, don't you? You can make a movie. And it's like, you a little bit roll your eyes because it's like, okay, but also like, that is the nature of the beast nowadays, where it's like, I mean, there's some comedy like, again, I'm older.
I'm older than than I once was, and younger than I'll be.
Yeah.
But
You're very young. You're a
yes,
young man.
young-
Listen, when the singularity happens, we're all going to live to 500 years
point.
old.
It's a good
So,
point,
you know, yeah, it could be very early in your life.
But I get inspired. My wife Maggie and I were just talking about this last night. It's like, what, like, who's making stuff? Because like, to me, again, maybe this is just my own like ADD brain as well, or just like whatever the specific nature of my mental whatever is. But it's like the phone. I of course I scroll like everyone else does. I scroll myself to death and like watch all the online comedy videos on my phone. But like there is something about the phone that makes it feel kind of removed or unurgent. But then you stumble upon these people who are so funny. There's a sketch group called Simpletown. Have you heard of these guys?
No.
Chris turned me on to them. They are genius. So funny. And there's people out there doing it who are really using the medium.
Yeah.
Like using the medium of like online digital comedy and like pushing the boundaries of that and like pushing it forward.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And like, so I can still feel my sort of, my Dionysian artistic flame fanned by watching some of these like real innovators out there who are like really doing it. Watching Chris Fleming's like the funniest person that's ever been, like seeing his absurdist takes on everything. It's like, yeah, there's people out there who still light up my brain in this way. And that I could imagine that if I was 25 and saw a Chris Fleming video, I watched Simpletown, I would be sprinting to the nearest comedy theater to like
check it out.
Yeah.
To do that. That's great. You know, I think that's awesome to, you know, you're still finding like all this inspiration and, because it can be, it's easy to check out a little bit.
It's easy to check out.
You know,
it is easy to check out. Yeah, exactly.
The Elysian Theater, I think you're right, is so awesome. Yeah, shout out if you're in LA or you're coming to LA. Go check it out if you're looking for a community.
It's really cool. And it is really communal. And again, I just have to like pat our dear friend Jacqueline on the back, who has been the artistic director there for like a year and a half. And it was like, who also comes from a quite serious, she did Neo-Futurists in New York. Do you remember that? Too much light makes the baby go blind.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes,
that was again, like they would write, what was it? 32-minute plays, write the titles on a sheet of paper, put it on what am I trying to say? Like a laundry line or whatever, like above the thing.
Clothesline.
The clothesline. Thank you.
Laundry line works.
Laundry
I think
line,
that works.
a laundry sphere. And the audience would shout out a number. They'd pick it off the thing and they would do the play. It had a very like
that's cool.
gonzo vibe, experimental theater, pseudo sketch comedy, but also some of the pieces were like quite serious. And I think Jacqueline has really brought her, and she is so smart, and she has really brought her sort of singular, unique aesthetic to the Elysian. It's just a great fit.
It does feel like it's had a renaissance.
There.
It really feels like it's kind of like blossomed in the last like couple of years.
It's a great place.
Chris Grace is who you know was doing his show there.
It's great.
And I saw it there. It was great. He's coming on the show next week, so we're going to talk about it. So I think we'll be doing some more plugging for Elysian.
Absolutely. It's an awesome spot. Yeah.
If you had to give your former self, this idealist young 20s college grad, you know, if you had to, knowing everything you know now, give that guy some advice, what would it be?
Man, if I had to give my younger self advice, I think I would say, I know it's a little like cliche, but I would just encourage him to when the realities and like the and the doldrums of real adult life arrive. Really do your best, young self, to sort of stay connected to the tell me again what the term is, the Joseph Campbell term.
Follow your bliss.
Yeah.
Your
just
bliss.
like,
follow. Yeah.
Yeah. And like keep the people, really continue to and really strive to keep the people who light up your brain close, because like real life is going to happen. And like, you're not always going to be like this fired up about life in the arts. Like will ebb and flow. That will wax and wane. The sort of like, you know, it's you know what I'm saying. So it's like just like keep the
flame alive.
Keep that flame alive, man. Keep that flame alive. It's worth it.
Yeah,
it's worth it when real life descends. It's worth it to rage against the dying of the light by sort of feeding yourself the artistic nourishment that you need. Like really make that a priority, because I've gone through times where I have made that less of a priority and I get depressed. Yeah. And then I sort of recommit to
consuming art, thinking about art, cultivating and nurturing that part of myself, and I feel better.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget when you have a house and a kid and a life and a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, just, I don't know. I would tell my younger self, and I tell my current self, because I could stand to hear that as well. To just like keep those weirdos nice and close.
Yeah.
Keep them nice and close.
Do you have a mantra or a perspective, like a philosophical perspective, or, do you have like a grounding sort of,
Great question.
Like ethos, I guess would be the word that you live by, or, find your weirdos. I mean, could be one.
Yeah, totally. Like, I do. I mean, again, not to repeat myself, but like Anya was our freshman year teacher, and just what she said about the trade-off of like, it's a hard life, and but you'll cultivate the weirdest community.
Yeah.
And like, that just is worth it to me, and it remains worth it to me. And like, I heard you and Rob talking, and it's like, and my wife, third generation showbiz person. Her parents were in the business, grandparents were in the business.
Oh.
So like, she has a completely different perspective about the like her parents were like middle class showbiz folks, like writers, actors, directors, just like really blue collar doing it,
Yeah.
And so pardon me, but I heard Rob talking about like wanting to become a therapist, something that my wife is also interested in doing. And it's like, I have gone through periods where I'm like, okay, time to pivot. It's time to pivot. Like, it just maybe is. I'm like, that's okay. And like, try to let go of the shame of like, quote unquote, having failed at this life.
Yeah.
That's a big
one
thing, or sort of like shame and the ego about it. Of like, but I really thought I should have had 5 Oscars by now, but wait, now I'm thinking about becoming a therapist. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And just like sort of really releasing this self-judgment about that. So yes, I've gone through periods of being more and less fired up, committed to living this artistic life. But ultimately, at the very end of the day, I don't have any other skills. So I'm stuck. But no, it's worth it to me. It's worth it to me. I went to Natalie Palamides' weirdo solo show at the Elysian, and it's totally gonzo, completely hilarious. And it's like, yeah, this is the community of which I want to belong. Like, it still is.
Yeah. Even
when I'm frustrated by it, even when I'm terribly bored by it, even when I'm like, have like bitten my fingernails to the bone because of like money worries, like even still, this is, I do like it here.
Yeah.
I do like it here amongst the clowns and carnies and freaks. Like, I do prefer it here.
Yeah.
This is the life I want.
That's a beautiful sentiment, really. Yeah.
Even when, I mean, I don't, again, I need to remind myself of that often.
Yeah.
Because whatever, we all go through like ups and downs, but like, it is worth it. I find it to be worth it.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about corporate?
Yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
Such a funny show.
Oh, thanks. It was
a great
best.
role.
Oh,
You're so funny in that show.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
What was it? To me, that feels like that is the moment where I look and I say, well, if that were me, I would say, oh, I've made it. I've arrived.
Oh, yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Did you have that sense, or like, what was your experience working on that show for so long?
Bliss.
Yeah.
The best. So when I first got to LA, I was like fooling around with stand-up and storytelling, because why not?
Mm-hmm.
And it was through that I met, I remember going to all these weird open mics at like Tribal Cafe and Silver Lake and all these, like, it very much had the feeling of like Under St. Mark's and whatever. And like, I like the grit of it. I like the dirty, weird open mic. Like, I always have a romance about stuff like that. So I would go to all these open mics, and it was like, a bunch of people, whatever. And like, I am no stand-up comedian, Nate. I really am not.
I've seen you do some stand-ups.
Yeah,
I've seen you do some very good stand-up.
I appreciate it. But it's not like, I'm not like one of these. I was hearing Rob talk about like joke craftsmanship. Nikki Glazer's a genius crafting joke. Like, that is, I agree. And like, I admire and revere people like that. But that's just not the way my brain works. I'm not like a Seinfeldian OCD jokesmith. Exactly.
Right.
But I do like performing, and I like being up and saying things. So I would go to these open mics, and there were 3 people who would jump out at me at all these open mics. I was like, wow. Like I was like not intimidated, just like totally amazed by them. And it was Jake Weissman and Matt Ingebretson and Aparna Nancherla. And I was like, okay, these folks are on a different, like they're stand-up comedians. They're like brilliant writers and like their delivery is so good. And like, wow, I have so much to learn. I'm like, there's such a delta between where I'm at in my stand-up journey and where these people are at. They're amazing. So I got to be friends with Jake and Matt just through that and just like got to know them. And then I just auditioned for it. It was like, I mean, getting the job itself was just like auditioning and it was just like a normal standard, whatever. But it was the best experience I've ever had, I think. I mean, it was such a blast. We shot it at it was in the dying days of Comedy Central. It was on like the death knell of that network or whatever. But we shot it at the old Los Angeles Times building downtown.
Oh, cool.
And the show, for those who have not seen it, is like this sort of hilarious, sort of black, poison tipped satire about corporations and evil corporate mega conglomerates. And it's so silly and
very
absurd,
satirical and biting and
very biting,
observant.
Yes, exactly. And
great.
really sharp. And like Jake and Matt and Pat Bishop, the director, like, and the creators of the show, just have such a singular vision. And like and they're also huge sources of inspiration for me because they would talk about going to pitch the show. And I think initially they wanted it to be like Portlandia in an office, basically like sketches, loose sketches, some recurring characters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I think the network was like, maybe it's a narrative show. And they're like, okay, yeah. But the thing that they had nailed down from the beginning, they were like, we know what the aesthetic is. And Pat is a particularly brilliant director. He's like a little savant and an editor who came from Funny or Die. And and they would go in and pitch this thing, and they said it's going to be Office Space if made by David Fincher. They were really clear on the visual look of it, and the aesthetic. We want it to be moody and dark and sort of morose. The look of it. The show is going to be very, very silly. The plots of the episodes will be absurdist and silly and sitcom-y, but the look will feel sinister, and the look will feel sort of dramatic and Mr. Robotish, you know what I mean? And like,
which it does. I mean, it totally it's got a very unique, it's not the comedy visuals you're used to seeing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was like, to any budding like writer creators out there, it's like, that was one of the reasons I think that they got the show made, was because their vision was so specific and they were sort of unwavering about it. And they were like, this is what it will look dark. That's sort of that's like what will be unique about it. That it will look like this. And they were just so smart and hilarious and funny. And Lance Reddick, who rest in peace, was in the show. It's amazing, incredible. So funny. And they were just able to get all these amazing guest stars and like
voice of Zavala. If you're a Destiny 2 video game, fan,
he did so many. Great actor, amazing actor. So it was just a blast, man. It was just a blast, and like so that was like, and it was also like a very sort of formative and seminal 5-ish years of life. It was like the show spanned Maggie and I moving into our house and having a child. And it's like that all was like over the course of the corporate experience.
Yeah.
So like it was means a lot to me. That the show definitely means a lot to me. And to your point about like, if I was a series regular on a show that I really loved, like that I genuinely, even if I wasn't on it, would have adored. And so in that way, it did feel like something of a career pinnacle or something like that. To be like, here I am, I'm doing it. And Aparna is in it too. And I bring up Aparna because she's in it and a genius.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was just a blast. It was a riot.
Were you guys all cast together randomly, or was that you knew each other somehow influenced is she a creator? I didn't know if she was
she was not a creator on the show, but Jake and Matt and Aparna, again, they had all known each other from stand up and they were all friends from stand up.
Okay.
And another thing that Jake and Matt and Pat are so good at, because then they went on to make the show after that, they made the show called This Fool that was on Hulu with Chris Estrada and Frankie. And it's like, they are so loyal to their friends.
Yeah.
And it's like they corporate at every single opportunity, they would throw their friends in the show and give them part. Like they are deeply ethical people in that way. And just like the exact kind of show creators that you would want to be around and have in your orbit. Just they're not only hilarious, not only like deeply kind and thoughtful and considerate, but just like loyal and generous of spirit.
I think that's such a good, you hear all the time, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on this show before, but it's like, it's not just who you know, but it's who you're friends with, who is your circle, who's your network, your close, like people that you actually, you're weirdos, who are your weirdos.
Exactly.
And I think people will say, oh, Hollywood is very competitive, and it is.
Sure.
But I think one thing to consider is that it's your network competing against other networks. And so you should never be jealous of your friends.
Right.
You know what I mean? There should be no competition between you and your buds.
Totally.
Even though sometimes it's hard, your buddy books a big thing and you're like, oh,
and it's
I'm
hard
jealous.
not to feel a twinge, of course.
Yeah. But it's really like a rising tide lifts all ships.
It's true. It's true. And corporate was like a very practical sort of like real life kind of lesson in that.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are really looking out they do not take for granted that like it's hard to make a show.
Yeah.
We all know this. It's hard to sell a show. That's another sort of like, now that I've had X amount of years in the business, that I really appreciate. To get anything made is a small miracle. Any single thing, no matter how big or small, whatever, is truly a minor miracle. So it's like really hard to do.
Yeah.
And they did not take it for granted. And they had the perfect attitude where it was like, we're so lucky and we deserve it.
That's huge,
and
right?
we deserve it because we're really smart and good. Like we're really smart and good, not in an arrogant way, but like just in a humble. They were equal parts. There was equal parts humility and self-confidence that I really in Pat, Matt, and Jake as a sort of a collective, that I was like, that's how you do it. That's the right concoction
formula.
That's the right way to do it. Yeah.
Did you guys mess around on set? Any like crazy? Did you guys like fool around a lot?
Here's what's funny, Nate. Not really. It was like, here's the other thing about, because, it wasn't like, my first job when I first came to LA was Punked. So there was a prank show. And like, that was like crazy. And
wait, which sketches were you in, or pranks were you in?
This is like 2012 or whatever, or 2011, 2012. This is when they were like rebooting it. It would have been off the air for a while, and they were like rebooting it with like celebrity hosts or whatever. So it was like, and I'm not even really like a prank guy, but like the vibe of Punked was like very like, hey, it's crazy, like everyone's crazy, and like there was like people. There was a little bit of like the inmates are running the asylum, and I had a little bit like they wanted it to be like, it's like punk rock SNL, isn't it? And it was like, it wasn't, but like that was like the vibe that they were trying to cultivate.
Yeah.
Corporate, Pat and Matt and Jake, they are hilarious. They are like the funniest people you would ever hope to meet, but they're quite serious about they're quite serious about the work, and they and so it wasn't like a hilarious crazy set. It really wasn't. It was like very efficient. It was extremely professional and workmanlike. And like Pat was the director, directed all the episodes. Matt directed a few, but Pat directed them all. And you sort of, the director a little bit sets the tone for the family. And Pat is soft-spoken, silly, but like quiet and deeply thoughtful, and no nonsense.
Yeah.
So like it was funnily enough, it was like, which I love. It was like, I'm not like crazy like Belushi, we're like doing drugs, or like it's crazy. Like the show, the art is funnier the crazier you are. Like that's really not my thing. Not my aesthetic exactly. So I really so no, there weren't a lot of like crazy things on set. And in fact, the couple of times where they brought in all these great guest stars, and one of them, I'll just say, it was like Natasha Lyonne, genius, hilarious, so funny. But like she is like has a real crazy energy, as we all know. And it was just so funny because like just having her on set, she was really an outlier. It was like, like crazy, scrappy showbiz, rated R, sort of like ribald body, whatever. And it was like, it seemed from another universe, because like the vibe was just very, very efficient, mellow, and like, I don't even want to say there's a better word than serious, but just like
thoughtful or dedicated.
Yeah, super dedicated.
Did she change the vibe? Like were people sort of like No,
it was fine. It was just, and she was hilarious and amazing and great and wonderful and so wonderful and great. But it was just the vibe. It just stuck out as like it was quiet and yeah, thoughtful. And like the DP was this amazing guy, Christophe, who is this French DP, very, very serious. Like these are like artists trying their hardest.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are real artists. And like Lance Reddick is here. So like button it up. You know what I mean? Like we're not ripping farts and telling dumb jokes. It's like, these are like, let's be serious.
Yeah.
In a good way and like a wonderful way that I thought like served the thing. And again, like I think a lot of that just came from Pat, Matt and Jake, who are not like crazy guys.
Yeah. What was Lance like on set? Was he serious? He's a very serious vibe. He was serious. He wasn't like making a lot of jokes.
I mean, of course he was. And like, he was so just a delightful human being. But not like pranky, silly necessarily, like dead serious about doing a great job. Dead serious about doing a really great job. Yeah. And that was just sort of the vibe throughout of like, let's make this really good. Let's all really try our hardest to make it really good. And like, that actually takes a lot of focus and concentration, like for long 14-hour days for months.
Yeah.
And so like, can you guys please be quiet? Like we're thinking.
Yeah.
And it was like, great. It's something I really appreciated.
I want to ask you about the Battle of the Sexes.
Oh yeah.
Emma Stone, Steve Carell.
Yes.
What were they like? What was the shoot like?
Here's another great example of like the juxtaposition between like, so that was, Harvard sailing team, our dear friend Farron Einhorn. Maybe you know Farron.
I do know Farron Einhorn. She cast me in an independent film, actually.
Oh, really?
It was like one of the last things I did before I left New York.
Oh my gosh.
And she was very complimentary, and it was a great experience.
She's the best.
Yeah.
And she and her colleagues cast that movie. So they just like gave me this little part of the movie. It was, I was there for a night. It was like a one night shoot in Hancock Park or something. And I was like, like a chauffeur, I think, and I showed up at the door. I didn't even say anything. I don't even think I have any lines in the movie. So, but it was that was cool.
Yeah. What was your motivation as the chauffeur?
I didn't
How did you
exactly
approach that
the
role.
role. Yeah, I did a lot of good method research on that.
Yeah.
Shadowed a chauffeur for 6 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. It was cool. And like, but again, a blip, like, you know how this is. It's like, it was not even like I was talking about dads where you're there for a week, you're sort of invested. This was less than that. I mean, you show up and my entire working experience on Battle of the Sexes probably totaled 7 hours of life. You know what I mean? It was like, that was it. Didn't talk to, I mean, it was like Steve Carell was there. We didn't really chat. Mm-hmm. But the directors were this married couple, Valerie, and I'm sorry to say I'm forgetting the husband's name, but they were great. And I had worked with them on a other pilot that Farron had also cast, some Amazon pilot, and they were cool. And I saw the movie on an airplane, and I was like, cool, this is cool.
You didn't even help out the box office.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what's on the old screen?
But that was cool. I still have not done a ton of like movie, like big feature, big budgety feature movies, but I mean that was a drop. That was a small, literally silent part in a much bigger thing.
Bigger thing. Yeah,
but it was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool to do.
It's fun to get in those.
Yeah. Family Switch, which was this Netflix movie I did that Farron also cast. Thank you, Farron.
Thank you, Farron.
That was really fun. That was Ed Helms and Jennifer Garner, whatever. It's like a family movie, like a body swap. The teens switch bodies with the parents. Great. Nice. But that was really cool because I got to be in this one big group scene that was like sort of toward the end of the movie that takes place at like a Battle of the Bands type of thing. And they had Weezer, the band Weezer.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
As the band in the Battle of the Bands.
Oh, fantastic.
So similar to the Martin Mull experience, one of my huge takeaways from that entire experience was sitting in the dressing room of this, like, I think it was on a we shot it on a high school campus, sitting in the dressing room of the high school auditorium with Weezer
Yeah.
and just like having lunch
So cool.
with Weezer
Yeah.
and like just the four of us or whatever, you know what I mean? And it was like just chatting. And one of them was like, so tell me about, you're so funny, man. Like, tell me about acting. Like, I'm thinking about getting into acting classes. Like, any advice? And I was like, this is surreal. Like, you're Weezer.
Yeah.
But
Did you give Weezer advice on acting?
yeah, they didn't need it. But it was like little moments like that will stay with me because like, I mean, that I rarely get starstruck. I mean, I just don't, but I mean, Weezer, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, we're children of the 90s. And
That
it's
would
like,
do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so that was really cool.
Speaking of 90s bands,
Yeah.
I just want to say that my son was born to the song Long December.
Yeah, dude.
That was like playing.
Yeah.
So we have a
Sort of sentimental.
90s.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, that's
Heck yeah.
total non sequitur.
Counting Crows.
but-
My family was a huge, not only the Wallflowers, but we were big Counting Crows, big Counting Crows household.
Yeah, I
For
thought
sure.
maybe it was in that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Who was oh god, I guess the Wallflowers. There's a 90s band that I used to really like.
Live.
Anywhere you go, I'll
Follow you. Is that better than Ezra? Or no, that was the Gin Blossoms, maybe?
Gin Blossoms.
Yeah, Gin Blossoms.
It was really got it. They had a really one great
Oh,
album.
yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna auto tune that so we can
Auto-tune
sing.
that.
Yeah,
So we-
sounds good. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you get starstruck? Have you found yourself in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I'm working with this person? Has that ever happened to you?
You know, it has not happened on set.
Yeah.
And I have in my life like prided myself on being cool around
Yeah,
celebrities.
yeah.
But when it does happen, it's the most embarrassing. I got starstruck and this is so weird.
Yes.
So I was an intern at a commercial casting agency. And Amy Poehler and Jason Mantzoukas came in and auditioned. This is like before, I think it was before SNL for Amy Poehler.
Oh, wow.
I only knew Amy Poehler from UCB. So she was just like a UCB person. And Jason Mantzoukas, I had no idea who he was. And me and this other intern were sitting in on this audition and they had to improv like a call-in radio show.
Fun.
And they
Genius, I'm sure.
It was
yeah.
I can't remember anything they said, but I just remember like
Yeah.
we were like trying not to laugh
Yeah.
because we're these like 20-year-old kids and they were being cast in this
Yeah.
commercial. And so I had this memory of Jason Mantzoukas and then like he had this like great career. And then I saw him at a bar in Los Angeles. It was the one right next to the UCB theater. That
Birds?
is Bird, the
Yeah.
one, not the Birds, but the one next
Oh,
to
okay.
it.
Yeah.
The French one.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that one.
Yeah, that one. And
Yeah.
for some reason, I was like 2 beers deep,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm gonna go talk to Jason Mantzoukas. And I tried to tell him this story.
I was an
like,
intern
hey
once,
man,
dude.
that was exactly what it was. I was like the broiest, dumb, and I was just like, oh, you came in and you were so funny, and you and Amy Poehler, and he was like,
Thanks, man.
thanks, man.
Yeah.
It was like I got the weirdo like
Yeah.
brush off, and I was like, I deserved it.
I deserve that.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could feel myself in the moment, just like, I was like, oh, I'm blowing this.
Yeah.
and it was like,
you remember and he doesn't. You
No.
remember that moment and he'll.
I'm sure he has no recollection. Just like
Yes.
one of many people that approach him and say stupid things.
The
But-
Amazon pilot that the directing, the same directors from Battle of the Sexes did. Shaq and Flea were in it.
Oh, nice.
And I remember we were in this room shooting this thing, and I played like a doctor or something, therapist or something. And it was about like a kid who has imaginary friends, and two of his imaginary friends were Shaq and Flea, I think. I've never even seen the show. But Shaq was there and he walked into the room, and it was that like stereotypical thing that you hear about like he just like altered the gravity of he like
Right.
literally seemingly physically changed the molecular makeup of the room, where people would just almost unconsciously, myself included, I think, just sort of gravitated towards him, and just like
Yeah.
like he was the sun and we were his orbiting planets. Like you just like can't help but like go to Shaq. Like you just couldn't help it. And everyone's shaking his hand. And at a certain point, I was like, there was like a quiet moment. I was like, just out of curiosity, like how many hands do you think you shake every day? Like just out of curiosity. And he was like, probably around 200 to 300. And I was like, wow. And then he was like, I have a method. He said, I shake your hand when I meet you. Okay. And then you say whatever you're going to say. And then I shake your hand a second time. And that's like the exit shake.
The second shake is like, and we're done.
Thank you.
And and I was like, yeah, like I guess if you're if you're Shaq, or if you're like a mega celeb, world renowned, whatever, you kind of need a strategy a little bit to like deal with.
That's so funny. It happens so often. You have like, this is my technique. This is my like meet and greet.
A hello shake and a goodbye shake.
Yeah.
I was like, really had it down to a science.
That's so funny. Yeah. Was he kind of like, my impression is that Shaq is kind of a nice guy.
Yeah. Seems like a great guy.
He was like cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Is he just so unbelievably tall?
You can't even believe it. You can't even believe how big it. That's what I'm saying. It was like like an asteroid had came into it was just like, he was like a planet. He's like his own planet or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like Starstruck isn't exactly the word, but like, again, you just couldn't help but like moth us to a flame. We were all just like, oh, Shaq. Like, there he is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Here he is. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I think I'm more starstruck by like athletes, I think, than maybe you are too, but like,
because they're not really in your world. Like, like actors, you're like, I get it. I understand how you got to where you are or whatever.
Exactly.
But
I've never had that like thing about, granted, and you probably experienced this too when we were at Atlantic, they would have like these guest classes and they would have like fancy people come in.
Yes.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman did come in. And again, I was also 19. So it was like seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman speak about acting at 19 was amazing. It was incredible. And like, was really cool. But like, I think now that I'm an adult or like as I'm older, and I've never really been like celebs or like
they're just like us.
They're just like us. So I've heard. But with athletes, I think it's maybe a little bit different. Yeah, like you're saying, someone outside.
Yeah, it's just a little less familiar, and you're just like, you have like a superpower. Yeah, you know, like you're like you've been created differently.
Yeah, and musicians too. There's a rapper I really love called Vince Staples, and I saw him he was in front of me in line at Prime Pizza in Altadena. I was like, holy shit. Like, nice. Like, oh my God. So like there's a couple little moments that
I met Bill Clinton in Chelsea Market, actually, which is very near our acting studio. And I was a little starstruck. He was just like wandering down like shopping with like, two Secret Service agents. And I went up and I shook his hand. And I was just like, Nate. Yeah. I didn't know all the bad trades agreements he had made at the time. So, I wasn't aware of all
NAFTA aside.
Yeah, NAFTA aside,
exactly.
Bill,
exactly.
But that was a moment where I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I also met a couple members of the band Phish. I'm a big Phish fan.
Nice, man.
And that was also, I got a little,
that's cool.
I got a little like, I really like your music page.
Man. Yeah, exactly. Have you seen Phish a bunch of times in concert?
I have seen them a bunch of times. Yeah. Oh, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we've never
2 or 3 times, maybe 2 or 3 times.
Oh yeah. Well, that's since like 2 or 3 times. I'll just say in the Fishiverse.
Oh, that's I'm an infant.
Yeah.
My friend Zach goes to every New Year's for his whole life. He goes to.
Oh wow, those are great shows.
Oh yeah,
like the MSG
at Madison Square Garden. Exactly. He goes all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, Phish. Of course.
Stuff. Yeah, Phish.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was. Yeah. Shout out to the boys.
Yeah, for
shout
sure.
out to Phish. Listen, and I don't mean to diminish. 2 to 3 shows is a beautiful.
But in the Fishiverse, it's nothing.
People will like go to hundreds and
oh God, I know. It's a lifestyle. It's a full lifestyle.
Yeah,
totally.
I followed him for one summer, and by followed I mean I think we went to like 7 shows.
That's crazy.
Like back to back to back. And
Hell yeah,
it's a total adventure. Yeah, it was so fun.
Was that so great?
It was. Yeah. You're young, and honestly, this was when you're a teenager and you live in Ohio and like smoking weed is like the worst thing you can possibly imagine. And then you go to a Phish concert and it's like this pot smoking oasis. And you're just like,
great.
What is this alternate reality that I've like found my way into?
Yeah, exactly.
And, I had just never really, I hadn't been to any rock and roll shows.
Yeah.
I think that the first Phish show I saw when I was like 17 or something like that. I just had never been. I think I'd been to like one Dave Matthews Band show or something like that. And it was just such a crazy world.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Those early shows were huge parties. It was the only place I've ever seen where literally every single person danced to the music the entire concert.
So great.
I think, I guess if you're like an EDM guy, maybe like you're a person, then you can go to EDM concerts. Everyone dances the whole time. You get that energy.
Yes.
But this was like I think like Grateful Dead probably had that same thing. But I got very hooked onto Phish.
Oh, dude. I mean, it's also just like,
I mean, we're of similar age, and it's also just like Phish is the sound of a very particular sentimental part of my life. 16, 17, 8, 15, whatever years old.
Yeah.
The song Sparkle, and like just like like it Phish means a lot to me. Like the music of Phish instantly transports me back to like
the 90s, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The 90s, different time.
Yeah, totally different time. What was the most recent concert you've been to? Have you been to any shows recently?
Man, I have. Oh gosh,
we went to. So I should say that we went to. My parents were in town. When was this? I guess in around the holidays, maybe, or the fall. And we went to go see Joni Mitchell.
Oh, that's
and
great.
the Joni Jam or whatever at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh,
an amazing
fantastic.
venue for a concert. Incredible.
Yeah, love the Hollywood Bowl.
So great.
The only place that lets you bring in like your own sandwiches and beer.
And it's just like beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So weird.
And it's just like a beautiful place to be.
Beautiful, beautiful setting.
But it was such a flex because it was like who was she going to bring out? I guess like the night before she like brought out all these like other guests to like sing her songs. And it was crazy, Nate. It was Brandi Carlile was just like her homie. It was like who's been like sort of like carting her around, whatever. And but okay, so so like the first half of the show was like all these obscure Joni Mitchell songs, like nothing, no A-sides, like almost no songs I recognize. Sure. I'm of course a Joni Mitchell fan, but not a fanatic. And like I didn't really, the vibe was great. It was all just hanging out, whatever. It was great. I didn't really know any of the songs, and that was fine. Yeah. And then there was a brief intermission, and then the second half, she like brings out all of her celebrity friends,
the
and
hits.
The hits with her friends, and it was John Batiste, that musician John Batiste, Elton John, who he didn't even sing. He would just like sat back there and just sort of enjoyed the music.
Like, hung out.
Sir Elton John.
Just chilling. Yeah.
Crazy. Annie Lennox, the guy from Mumford and Sons. And then Meryl Streep was there as well.
Chilling or performing?
Singing back up, whatever. But I was like, oh, this is great. This is cool, man.
That is cool.
It was really cool. It was a fun vibe.
What do you think that phone call was like? Do you think like Meryl Streep is like, I've been doing some singing lately. And I'm such a fan. Yeah.
She calls Joni.
Who calls
weasel her way in there.
Does Joni call Meryl?
I mean, does Meryl call Joni?
Yeah. I don't know how that goes.
Yeah. It was really cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Last few concerts, I can't remember the exact last one. We have a 9-month old base. We have not been seeing.
Time is limited.
There not been a lot of stuff.
Yes.
But we did get this run of sort of like we managed to catch we caught Paul Simon's final tour at the Hollywood Bowl, which was obviously just so great. We're big Paul Simon fans around here. Huge. And then we also caught the Monkees. I think we caught the Monkees final. I think it might have been their final show.
My gosh.
I would have to check, but it was in their final tour.
Yeah.
And then we also saw this was I think when my wife was pregnant, so I think we knew we were not going to get to see stuff for a while. It might have been the year before. We also saw the Rolling Stones at SoFi.
So cool.
And these were awesome. But I will say that we had this run of like very old rock stars.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
everyone was sort of like bidding adieu to their. And it was like great to go there, but you're also like, I feel a little sad. A little sad seeing all these legends kind of hanging
sundowning here. Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's like, I was like, I got to shake it up. I got to go see Phish. Yeah. And it's like, well, they're also in their 50s. Exactly. They're not exactly the young.
Gotta go see some whippersnappers like Phish.
I'm trying to get into some new. I got to go to like Goose or
yeah.
The new up and coming jam band.
Is it?
Cool. I think so. I think
great.
They're great. They're very good vibes.
Were you in a band yourself in high school? Did you like?
I was in the school band.
Oh yeah, you
out
were.
Myself as a bit of
you were.
music. Yeah, I was in the school band. I played the trumpet. Symphonic orchestra.
Cool.
Yeah. It was fun. I thought for a little bit I was going to be like a marching band guy.
Cool.
And but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
Marching bands are kind of amazing though. They're sort of awesome.
Yeah. They're so cool.
So cool.
I think like I couldn't do theater and the marching band. I was like, I had to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a theater kid at
Pick your nerd crowd.
Yeah. Pick your nerd crowd. Yeah. I'm going to hit you some rapid fire questions. Do you have a dream role you've never played?
Oh, wow. Great question. Okay.
I'm going to open this up to movies because I think the era of like, I always wanted to be Othello.
Yeah.
I'm going to say like, if you could pick even movie roles, like if I could be the dude in the Big Lebowski.
Oh, wow. That's a great one.
Yes. I'm going to open.
Okay, great.
Dream roles. Dream roles.
That's a great William H. Macy in Fargo. is like the best. I think one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I just think that's just about
Great
about as good as it gets.
Yeah. Love that.
And I will say, so like that's up there. What is it? Jerry Lindegaard, I believe is the character's name. Jerry Lindegaard.
Sounds right.
So good. Amazing. I could watch that movie every day. Loved Fargo. William H. Macy was also a founding member of Atlantic. So it's like, whatever.
Yep.
And then, there's a play that I adore. In fact, next week, my wife and I are going to see this guy's, another play that this guy, Will Arbery.
I love that you're getting out to see so much theater. It's really inspiring. I feel like I got to get off. I got to get out and see more theater.
You have a baby.
I know.
You have a baby.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, but this guy, Will Arbery, wrote this play that really blew my mind. That was called Heroes of the Fourth Turning. It like won the Pulitzer, blah, blah. This was like deep pandemic, like 2021, whatever. So I watched it on Zoom and I was like, like watching a play on Zoom, like, let me give it a shot. I was floored. It was so good. I was like an instant, like, zealot about this guy, Will Arbery, who's also like a writer for Succession. I mean, like he's just a great playwright. But any role in that play, Heroes of the Fourth Turning, would also be a dream role because that just really, and not to sound pretentious or highfalutin, but I do still think that, whatever, I like movies, I like TV, but I still the sort of the most transformative audience, the art consumption viewing audience experiences that I've had in my life, the ones that have really wedged its way deep into my subconscious, have all been in the theater. Have all been like it is like, again, hokey to say, but there is something about the being in the room in the live theater. It just feels. Do
you have a comedy hero? Did you have a comedy hero growing up, and do you have a comedy hero now, or someone that inspires you?
Yeah. I was always reluctant to heroes. I mean, his legacy is quite complicated and very thorny, but I grew up on Woody Allen movies, and like my mom is a big Woody Allen fan. So like that, just like his oeuvre, sense of humor, cadence, speech pattern, I think has informed was just in me, for better or worse.
Yep.
So like his movies meant a lot to me. Mel Brooks movies meant the world to me.
And when
obviously.
you're young, I think it's harder to know the sort of backstory of all that stuff. So you give your young self a little bit of
certainly do
permission. But yes, a complicated
of
figure.
course, complicated figure. But I mean, Mel Brooks movies, I've never laughed as hard as like seeing Blazing Saddles and The Producers and like Young Frankenstein and whatever, like Spaceballs and all that. So like that sort of absurdist, kind of absurdist sense of humor. And like David Lynch, R.I.P. David Lynch is like is maybe I just heard an amazing clip of David Foster Wallace talking about Blue Velvet and David Lynch, and just like how David Foster Wallace was like, David Lynch is like a true American original surrealist in a way that we have just not had. And again, that also hit me at the exact right time. It was like, I had never even heard of David Lynch. Like Mulholland Drive came out, 2001. But like in college, like I did watch Blue Velvet and like went fully down the Twin Peaks rabbit hole. And it was like, the Lynch, it means the world to me. And like that level of surrealism, abstractness, art that surpasses the logic brain and goes right to the feeling part of you, that like that is something that I cherish. And like, so I know it's not like comedy hero exactly, but like, funny, Mel Brooks and David Lynch actually, Mel Brooks hired David Lynch to direct The Elephant Man. And Mel Brooks produced The Elephant Man that David Lynch directed. So it's like they're whatever, tied together.
Talk to each other.
They talk to each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
Careers have talked.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, not really a comedy hero. And of course, obviously Seinfeld, and like
he was big.
It's like the again, like this sort of Fawlty Towers was big for me too. I would go over to my friend Dan Scher's house and we'd watch Monty Python and Fawlty Towers and like John Cleese.
I missed Fawlty Towers.
Oh, really?
I never. It just wasn't part of my world. I got to get into it. I got to go.
Silliness. I mean, my mom is a big comedy fan. My mom is a bigger comedy fan than I am. Honestly, I'm like, she listens to all the podcasts podcast. She will watch this in its entirety for 100%.
Shout out to
Mrs.
Susan Lustick.
Yeah.
Wait, your mom's name is Susan?
Yeah.
My mom also named Susan. Shout out to our moms.
Susan.
Shout out to the Susans. The
exactly.
artistic Susans
The
that
Susan
raised
crew.
us.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, moms. But she, and she was a big Mel Brooks SNL person. Again, much more than I was, honestly.
Yeah. You come by your good taste, honestly.
I come by, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you have a comedy hero? Do you think?
Growing up, it was Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
Yeah. He just did stuff that made me laugh. Laugh so hard.
Yes.
I hate another very complicated figure. But I did love Bill Cosby when I was a young person.
Yeah, naturally.
Obviously.
Yes. And we watched all of his like specials and stuff.
Yeah.
He's a nightmare person, obviously, but
he just gets a bum rap. I think he's just
exactly. That's right. I mean, talk about don't meet your heroes. It's like, who are your comedy heroes?
Definitely don't meet him because you might wake up in his house.
That's exactly right.
All right,
exactly.
This is a dark road.
That's okay. It's okay.
Have you ever worked corporate jobs?
Not really. The closest was catering in New York for this like big catering company that many of us, thanks to again Chris Smith, who got us all jobs at this catering company called Restaurant Associates. That was like they would cater all of the big museums and all the big banks and all like the stuff in New York, which is an amazing way to experience New York City. Like to like hang out in the bowels of the Natural History Museum and like the basement of the Met and like the weird back rooms of the Guggenheim. Like I kind of loved it. It was sort of amazing. It was an amazing experience actually, but I've never really worked a job. I've never really had a job, Nate. I don't know what to tell you. I've never really had one.
Well, did you bartend and waiter and that kind of stuff?
Not even really.
You've just been booking and working.
Not even. I can't really explain myself. When I was in high school, I had, I worked at like the local grocery store. And then when I was in college, my college home from college job, and you're going to get a kick out of this, was costume singing telegram and children's birthday party.
You'd be the best singing telegram I could ever imagine
in Albany, New York.
So I wonder if there are any people that like see you on TV and you're like, that guy
got me for my 50th. Yeah, exactly. I have never, for better or worse, never found my way to a proper to a proper job, for better or worse.
Sure.
And I may never.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I think it's great. That's great. That's fantastic. What is one thing that you would like to be remembered by for your work? Like if someone could take one thing away from your body of work, what would you hope people?
What a great question. That's so interesting. I mean, there's much that I've done that I feel really proud of. There's much that I've done that I feel kind of indifferent towards. I feel like I don't think it's happened yet, Nate. I like to believe that the thing that I will be super proud of and be like, I made this thing. I like to think that I maybe haven't made it yet. I like to think it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it has. Yeah. Maybe that's foolishly optimistic of me, but I love that.
It's a very hopeful, optimistic. Let the universe
doesn't happen quite. I do like acting is really fun. Corporate was amazing. I mean, like I said, like that's the biggest sort of meatiest, most substantial like acting job or whatever that I've ever had. So that was great. And like I'm so proud that is on wax and will live on and exists. And that's really cool. And I'm supremely proud of that. But I've also written some things. Maggie and I wrote this pilot that I thought was really good, never got made. And I made this really weirdo pilot for Adult Swim. This is back in 2016, 17 or something with Jason Alexander. That was really fun.
Oh yes. I think I remember that.
Very strange. Very weird. And, but I'm trying to get a movie made. So like, I don't know, maybe it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I love that answer. I think that's great. I think it's fine. What do you want to plug? Do you want to plug anything? You want to plug this movie? Or like, are you raising money or anything like that?
No, it's just a script that I'm ready that I'm hoping to.
Oh, gotcha.
Not even anything.
Fantastic.
Yeah. My Billy, the aforementioned Billy, and I do have a podcast of which we have been on sort of an extended caesura, as you and I were talking about. But that is called the No Joke Podcast. That's on the Headgum Podcast Network.
Nice.
So if you're interested, people can go
Check
and
it
there's
out.
a huge backlog of hundreds of episodes there that people can
take a look.
Take a look at.
Yeah, get some more of this.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Awesome Adam Lustick.
Oh man.
I like to go out.
Yeah.
Leaving the audience with one good thing in the world, one good thing that you're happy exists, one good thing in your life.
Wow.
One thing to feel good about in this chaotic
time.
world and time. Yeah.
That's a great question. And let me think about it. Well, so this is a personal thing that is maybe not universal, but is sort of a good thing in the context of a shitty thing, which is like, as we all know, there are these fires that ravaged our town, our city.
Yeah.
And we live not quite in Altadena, but quite close. So we've had to, we've been living at my mother-in-law's for the past month or
you're
so.
still evacuated.
I mean, our insurance is dragging their heels. And it's taken time to clean it properly, blah, blah, blah. And it's fine.
Sure. So your house made it, but the
Don't wait for
area
us.
is unlivable.
Altadena is
It's rough up there.
rough.
Yeah.
It's really rough and quite sad. But our house is fine. In the grand scheme of things, we're incredibly lucky and fortunate. Do not weep for us. It's fine. But we have had to live elsewhere. And we put our kid, who is in kindergarten, in this great new school that is a Waldorf school. Something that I don't know how familiar you are.
I'm not familiar. I've heard that term, but I actually don't know what it means. In my mind, it's just like a Montessori type school, something like that. Yeah,
but Waldorf is like a specific discipline with all these rules and trappings, whatever. And like the school isn't like hardcore, which is like, no plastic, no logos on the shirts. Like it's all, and I say that with like sort of a militant tone, but I just mean like it's supposed to be natural, organic play, and it's in a really nice way. But anyway, our son is going to this new school now, which I think is really great. So I have been excited. And the parent community is really great. It's a bunch of other artists type folks.
Are weirdos.
Exactly.
Yep.
Truly. Whereas the school that he was at before was a little bit more traditional and buttoned up.
Yeah.
Because that's the funny thing about having a kid. It's like your child's friends' parents become your community, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, so I have been very rejuvenated and exhilarated lately by this new, and I know this is probably very boring for people who aren't me or my wife or son, but invigorated by this new school. And because both my parents were teachers, I think that if I weren't doing this, I would definitely be a teacher. I've been teaching improv. So like teaching and school is something that I really cherish. It's like the sort of like the academic atmosphere and like, especially early childhood. My parents are both like early childhood educators. So it's something that I don't know, I feel kind of oddly invested in and kind of passionate about, I think. So like having our kid in this really great school with these really great kids, just even though it was sort of a necessity born out of being displaced from our home, it's sort of been this wonderful silver lining that we have been experiencing lately. So I do feel grateful and happy about that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Adam, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
I really appreciate it,
I hope you'll come on again.
Please.
I feel like there's so much to talk about. We just only scratched the surface.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
I'd like to begin with a fact. So deep. So deep.
Or in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
You have to go deeper, I think.